I get the question a lot of what is going on in the market. And something I will probably say before every market update is you have to look at your area, your region, not just national news. National news is showing big picture, and they're often focusing on big metropolitan areas like San Francisco or New York or even Atlanta that isn't really that relevant to what's happening in the Oconee County and Athens area. So I want to focus on what's happening in those areas. And what I am seeing is, unfortunately, we still have incredibly low inventory. A lot of people are not selling their home. And we just haven't had enough new builds over the last decade to take into account the number of people who need a place to live. And so that has the low inventory. I am seeing people who had been keeping a home because of their super low interest rate starting to realize that even though it's a little painful to leave a 3% interest rate, sometimes in life you do need to do that. Over the last few years, there have been the obvious reasons, like if you're getting a divorce or if someone's passed away or you're moving out of state, people have been obviously selling their homes. But I'm actually starting to see people who just want a different kind of home. Maybe they need a bigger home for their family. Maybe they need a smaller home for their family, or they want to be in a different school district, that they are willing to leave their 3% rate in order to get the home that they really want and need for their family. And so I think some of that is because it's been a couple years since we had such low rates. I also think because in October, rates were up at 8%, and now they're more, a 30-year fix is probably more like a 6.5 to high 6. And that feels a lot better than an 8% rate. I'm hearing different things on what rates are going to do this year. The vast majority of what I'm hearing is that they're probably going to remain pretty steady. But I actually did see an article this week that was kind of implying that perhaps they would go a little bit lower. But I don't think anybody is predicting several points drop. So what all of this means for you is that if you are thinking about listing your home, I would go ahead, reach out, let's talk about it, talk about the pros and cons. I don't think this year there's going to be a major change in rates that would affect the timing of you selling your home. And where that would come into play is if rates dropped a couple of points, then we would probably get the kind of frenzied activity that we saw a few years ago. And maybe we would be getting 15 offers on a home, as opposed to right now, because inventory is still super low, we're getting about 2 or 3 offers often on a home. And so because rates are probably not going to drop that much, there's no reason as a seller to wait to see if that's going to happen. Conversely, as a buyer, because rates are probably going to not drop that low, you don't need to wait for that. In fact, I would say now is a wonderful time to buy a home because you're not in competition with quite as many people, with this being the winter months. And so you might only have one person, or maybe you luck out and you don't have anybody you're competing against. And what that often does for you as a buyer is you can perhaps get the seller to pay your closing costs or a portion of your closing costs. You can have better repair negotiations. You might have a better timeline, actually have a due diligence long enough to have a home inspection and get other inspectors in to look at things. And so I think anytime in the market when it's not so frenzied and you're able to have a little bit more time, I actually think that's better for everybody involved. So bottom line, it's a great time to list your house because there's not inventory. And it's actually a good time to buy a house because rates have gone down to more reasonable levels, but we're not in crazy bidding wars.